stepsons, I got all excited to come out and go for a bike ride because my kids chipped in to help buy me a new bike for Father's Day. And unfortunately, I got a flat tire. So today, we're going to show you how to patch a hole in a tire, and we're also going to show you how to change an inner tube in a tire at the same time. It's a little easier to take off the front tire than the back tire. This one, the front tire, is the one that is flat. First thing is to turn it over so it's resting on its seat and its handlebars. The brakes are connected around here, so you have to loosen the cable on that so that the pads and the brakes will be far enough apart that you can pull the tire out. This one has a quick release. Sometimes you had to have a wrench to take off both sides of the tire, but this one is a nicer bike, so you can actually just pop that up, and then if it's not loose enough, then you can unthread it, loosen it a little bit if you need to. Does this have clamps on it? It doesn't. So then the tire's out. I can tell you how I used to do this when I was a kid, or I can show you the nicer way to do it. When I was a kid, this is what we used to take the tire off. When the inner tube doesn't have any air in it because it's flat, has a hole in it, then there's a lot of room in here and it's easy, and we would just put these in, pry out one side, move around a little bit, pry out the other side, or 6 inches or so past there, and then you'd work your way around to where you get it. Sometimes you needed a third one. And you can make this work or just hold it out. Now that's going to stay out. Come a little bit further and do another one. And once you get a certain distance, you got more of it on the outside than on the inside, so that it's just naturally going to go that way, all the way around. I've got my valve stem here. I've got to take the cap off the valve stem, and then I can pull that through the inside of the rim. And now I've got the tube coming all the way out. Just pull it out from around. Next thing is to find out where the hole is. Put some air in it. And I could actually hear it from over here. And I can feel it. So right there where it's leaking. If that's the only place it's leaking, all I got to do is put a patch on that. If I really wanted to double check, then I've got a tub of water. I can run the tube after I inflate it through the water. And I just dug in my toolbox to see what I had, and I've got some old patch kits. And so this is one that has little stickers, patches that I could use and try. I'm looking at these thinking, they don't look so sturdy. Found 3 different little packages of slime scabs. They sell these little patch kits that are just little dots, adhesive patch. So I'm going to use one of those. When you're going to put one of these on, you want to rough the surface of the inner tube off. And that's so that it will stick better and seal around the hole. Here's the tiny little hole. This was just a thorn that went in it. Don't do this with your best washcloth from your house. This will be a garage rag, and I'm wiping off around there, larger than the area of the patch. And this is just water and a rag to get it clean. All right, now I want to let that dry. After you've wiped it down, you want to rough the surface a little bit around where you're going to put the patch. So they make these little tools that have just a rough surface, and it kind of scratches up the surface of the inner tube so that it will get a better seal when you put the patch on. So the hole is right there. I've wiped it off. I'm going to peel the adhesive part off and put this, and you want to be careful not to touch the adhesive surface at all if you can help it. That's actually a good seal. And I want to put it where the little hole is as close to the center as I possibly could. And now I'm just pressing down, trying to get all the little air pockets out of that as well, to the edge of the patch. Now I'm probably going to let this sit for about 5 minutes before I put that back in the tire. While the patch is drying, I want to show you how to use this tool and how to change out a valve stem if you ever needed to. This valve stem goes inside here, and occasionally they fail, and you can reuse the inner tube by changing the valve stem. This one is a little tool that goes inside the stem and lets you unscrew the valve stem out from the stem itself. So it's threaded on the inside in there, and so this little valve is what lets the air in but stops it from coming out. And this little tool will seat over that like that and allow you to unthread it and thread it back in inside the valve stem. Slime is something you can actually put inside your inner tube to help seal a leak. If you get a small leak, it will actually seal it. I took the stem out, or the valve out of the stem, and this is enough to do theoretically 4 tires. I think it's been used on 1 so far. So I'm going to squirt it in by putting this over here, and we're going to try to get about 4 ounces in. So now I'm going to put the stem back in and turn it just till it's hand snug to the bottom, and it's back in there now. Okay, so now I've got the valve stem back in there. I'm going to go ahead and put the inner tube back inside the tire and put the tire back on the rim all the way. We'll go ahead and pump this up, and hopefully we've taken care of the patch on the hole that we did have, and something to help fight any potential future small leaks as well. You do want to go through and find if there's a thorn that caused that. Make sure you get that thorn out. You can run your fingers through the inside of the tire and feel and make sure you don't have any other thorns poking through. Otherwise, when you put it in, it might just pop it again and you're no better off. And one of the trickiest parts about putting it back in is getting the valve stem to stick straight out. When I do this as a kid, usually when I was done it would be this way or that way. So you've got to find on the rim where the hole for the valve stem is, and you start there, and you're going to put the inner tube in the tire, but starting with the valve stem coming out that hole. So it's popping out now. I want it to stay straight out because that's the easiest way to deal with it, but I don't want to pinch the inner tube as I put it back in. I used to start here and go all the way around, and that's where it moves it, and the valve stem will cock one way. So if you get it straight in and go around each side equally and opposite, you've got less opportunity for the valve stem to be sticking out at a funny angle. And I'm just tucking the tire, the inner tube, in the tire. And you don't want to wrinkle it, you don't want to pinch it. So now, we're going to go ahead and put the tire back inside the rim. It's easy to start it on one side or the other and start going around. It's when you get more than halfway it starts to get snug because you have to stretch it. And that's where these tools, either screwdrivers, or let me show you these tools now that are nicer and newer. But these have a little pry angle on it and a little part that you can hook on a spoke to put it in. I'm just going to tuck them back in, so I'm actually going backwards with them. and then it's tucked in, and the edge is back inside the rim. Now we're going to go ahead and fill the tube. When the tire has no air, you kind of have to put some pressure behind it to put this on, and so you might need your thumb on the back side of it so that it grips onto the stem before you pump it. It's important you put the right amount of air pressure in it. Tires will tell you what they're rated for in terms of air pressure. You have to look around the side. In this case, 50 to 85 as the max PSI, pounds per square inch of pressure. The pump has a pressure gauge built into it. If it doesn't have a pressure gauge, then you get a tire pressure gauge and you check it in between pumping and make sure you're in that range. Now I can pump it up. Now the needle's starting to move, and it's above 10. This is when I'm going to move it to the floor. Okay, so now I'm in the range. I'm above 60 psi, up to 70, and that's probably good enough. I'm going to go ahead and put the cap on it too, just to protect the valve, and then we can put it back on the bike. The direction that this turns is specified on the tire. So in this case, it says this direction. It's easy to remember because if you just pay attention to which side the quick release was on, put it back on the same side and you're fine. But if you don't have a quick release, still look for that direction on the tire. Make sure you're putting it in so that when this is on the ground, it's going to go that direction when you're going forward. Okay, so now I just drop it back in between the brakes. Now this is a little trickier because I inflated it, but it's back in, and now I can tighten it down a little bit, and then, actually that's not enough. The quick release should pull it snug, but it should take some pressure to actually snug it up. So that feels good there. Then the last thing is to put the brakes back on. This type of brake has springs that keep it out, and then the cable, when you pull the brake up here, is what pulls them together, but it only works when this is seated. There we go. Should be good to go. All right, we got air in our tires. They're repaired. We're ready to go for a bike ride. So that's what we're gonna do. Always wear a helmet. All right, let's go. Is it framed well?
Sort of like it cuts off.
Let me try that over again. We running?
Yep.
Stop it. This is why editing is so fun. Cut! I'm too old for this. Did you do something to this?
No.
And we're back.